At the age of 82, I thought I had seen it all. But nothing could have prepared me for the realities of life in a nursing home. I moved in thinking it would be a temporary solution after all. It promised safety, comfort, and care. But what I didn't realize was how much it would change my life in ways I never imagined. If you or a loved one is considering this step, there are some truths I wish someone had told me before I made that choice. In this video, I'm sharing 6 shocking realities that no one prepares you for when moving into a nursing home. Stay with me, because these lessons could change how you approach this major life decision. 1. Losing my independence. The shock of losing control. When I moved into a nursing home at the age of 82, one of the biggest surprises was how much control I lost over my own life. Before moving in, I could decide when to wake up, when to eat, when to go for a walk, and what activities to participate in. It was a simple life, but it was my life, and I was in charge of it. I had the freedom to choose my daily routines and make decisions on my own. However, once I moved into the nursing home, everything changed. I quickly realized that I no longer had control over my own life. Everything, from meal times to daily routines, was dictated by a fixed schedule. Breakfast was served at 7 a.m., whether I was hungry or not. Lights out was at 9 p.m., regardless of whether I felt ready for bed. If I wanted to go for a walk, I had to ask for permission and wait for assistance. Even simple decisions, like what to wear or what to eat, became privileges rather than choices. This loss of control was a huge shock. I was used to making my own decisions, but now, those freedoms were gone. The things I took for granted before, like deciding when to eat or go to bed, suddenly felt like distant memories. It was a humbling experience, realizing that my life no longer belonged to me in the way it used to. When you're older and considering a move into a nursing home, it can be hard to fully grasp the impact of losing your independence. The little freedoms that you think are insignificant, like reading a book in your favorite chair or deciding when to take a walk, are actually deeply important for maintaining a sense of self. These small daily choices contribute to your identity and well-being. For many, moving into a nursing home may seem like the only practical option, especially if you need extra help. But it's crucial to think about what you're giving up when you do. You may not immediately realize how important these freedoms are until they are taken away. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, am I ready to give up these small, but meaningful freedoms? Because once they are gone, it's much harder to regain them. George and the loss of purpose. In the nursing home, I had a neighbor named George, a lively carpenter who had always been full of energy before moving in. He used to spend his days working on projects around the house, fixing things, building small projects in his garage. But when he moved into the nursing home, everything changed. There were no projects for him to work on, no tools, and no space to be creative. I saw George withdraw into himself. He went from being an active, hands-on person to sitting idly in his chair all day. One day, he looked at me and said, "I feel useless now. My hands, once busy with work, now just sit here in my lap." Hearing that was heartbreaking. George, a man who had built his life around his work and projects, was now struggling to find purpose. This loss of purpose is something I think many of us face when we move into a nursing home. Without daily tasks and projects, we start to feel like we're just existing rather than living. George's experience shows how important daily activities are in maintaining a sense of self. Without them, you can start to feel aimless and disconnected from who you were before. If you're considering moving into a nursing home, I urge you to think deeply about the impact it will have on your independence. Losing the ability to make decisions, even small ones, is a significant change, and it can affect your emotional well-being in ways you might not expect. The small freedoms we have, like choosing when to eat or when to go for a walk, are integral to our sense of identity and self-worth. Before you make such a life-changing decision, ask yourself, am I ready to give up these freedoms, and am I prepared for what that might mean? If you can answer that question honestly, you'll be in a better position to make the right choice for yourself. 2. Feeling forgotten. The reality of isolation. One of the hardest truths about moving into a nursing home is realizing how quickly the world outside continues without you. When I first arrived, my family promised they would visit often, and for a while, they did. My daughter came by once a week, and my grandchildren visited on weekends. For those early weeks, it felt like I still had a connection to my old life, to the people who mattered most to me. But as the months passed, those visits grew less frequent. My daughter started calling instead of visiting, and my grandchildren became busier with school and work. The holidays, in particular, were the hardest. Everyone promised they'd come, but at the last minute, plans always changed. I found myself sitting alone in a common room, watching the other residents stare at the door, hoping that today would be the day someone remembered them. It's not that my family didn't love me. Life simply got in the way. And as I sat there, alone, I began to realize that once you're in a nursing home, it's easy for people to assume you're fine. They think you're adjusting, that you don't need them as much, but the truth is, the longer you stay there, the more likely it is that you will be forgotten. I'll never forget one evening when I was sitting in my room, holding my phone, debating whether I should call my son. I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to remind him that I was still here, waiting for a visit that might never come. So, I put the phone down and sat in silence. That was when it hit me. This was my life now, waiting, hoping, and feeling like I was becoming invisible. The emotional impact of becoming forgotten can be one of the most painful aspects of life in a nursing home. It's easy for family and friends to assume that you're fine, especially when they are not physically around to see the loneliness creeping in. But the isolation that comes with not having regular visitors is more than just an inconvenience. It's an emotional burden that can weigh heavily on your spirit. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, am I prepared for the loneliness? Because no matter how much your family loves you, once you're out of sight, it's easier than you think to become out of mind. It's not that they don't care, but the distance, both physical and emotional, can make it feel like you're no longer a part of their daily lives. The isolation of others. I saw it happen to others too. There was a woman named Margie, a kind, gentle soul who had been living in a nursing home for several years. When she first arrived, her children visited her regularly. But over time, they started visiting less and less, and soon, she was mostly alone. I could see the change in her. She became more withdrawn, her once vibrant spirit dimming with each passing day. Her situation wasn't unique. Many residents here, once surrounded by family and friends, slowly drifted into isolation. Visits from loved ones became rare, and eventually, the daily routine of being surrounded by strangers in a sterile, structured environment became their new reality. If you are considering a nursing home, be honest with yourself about the potential emotional toll. It's not just about the physical care, it's about the emotional connection to the outside world, which can slowly fade once you're inside. No matter how much your family loves you, there is a risk that you will feel disconnected and forgotten over time. The question is, are you ready for that loneliness? Are you prepared for the emotional challenges that come with being away from your loved ones, even if they are just a phone call away? 3. Losing my sense of purpose. The diminishment of daily responsibilities. Before I moved into the nursing home, I had a purpose every day. Even the small things, like watering my plants, making coffee, or tidying up my space, gave my life structure and meaning. I had routines that I followed, and those routines were what made each day feel valuable. I had responsibilities that, while simple, kept me engaged in life. But once I moved into the nursing home, those daily responsibilities disappeared. Meals were prepared for me, and cleaning was taken care of by staff. The plants that I once cared for were no longer mine. I could no longer decide when or how to clean my room or take care of my environment. At first, I told myself that it was nice to finally relax. No more chores, no more responsibilities. I could rest and take things easy. But after a few weeks, I realized something was missing. The days felt long, stretched out with nothing to do but wait. I saw it in other residents, too. People who had once been energetic and full of life now spent their days sitting, staring out the window, waiting for time to pass. There was a man named George, a former carpenter, who had spent his entire life building things. But now, without tools or projects, he sat idly in his chair, feeling lost. The loss of purpose is one of the most insidious effects of living in a nursing home. It's not just about losing your job or the things you used to do. It's about losing the small things that gave you meaning. Those daily rituals, watering your plants, cooking your meals, tidying up your space, are often what give life its structure and sense of worth. Without them, it's easy to start feeling like you're just passing time rather than living it. If you're considering moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, what will give my life meaning once I'm there? It's easy to think that you can fill your time with rest or entertainment, but without the sense of purpose that comes from your own choices and actions, you might start to feel adrift. The loss of purpose can be just as devastating as the loss of physical ability. George's withdrawal. George, the carpenter, was a perfect example of how the loss of purpose can affect someone. When he first arrived, he was excited to rest, but soon, he started to wither. Without projects to work on, his hands, once skilled and active, grew idle. He began to feel useless, a feeling I understood all too well. Once, he told me, "I feel like I've lost myself." Purpose is what drives us to wake up each day, to engage with the world around us, and to feel alive. In a nursing home, where daily activities are dictated by staff, it's easy to lose that sense of purpose. If you're considering this option, it's essential to think about how you will maintain your sense of meaning. Without it, life can start to feel hollow, and your health, both physical and mental, may begin to deteriorate. 4. Declining health faster than expected. The unexpected physical decline. Before I moved into the nursing home, I was doing fairly well for my age. I wasn't running marathons, but I could still take care of myself. I would go for walks, stretch every morning, and do little things around the house to keep my muscles active. I was keeping up with life, physically and mentally. But once I moved into the nursing home, everything changed. At first, it seemed like a nice break. I no longer had to cook or clean. Everything was taken care of for me. But what I didn't realize was that by relying on others to do things for me, I was losing my strength. I stopped moving as much, and soon, my muscles felt stiff. Sitting in a chair for hours, with no need to walk or stretch, caused my body to become weaker faster than I ever expected. The physical decline that comes with inactivity is something I wish I had been more aware of. The more help we receive, the more we can lose our independence. In a nursing home, everything is designed to make life easier, but that very convenience can be detrimental to your health. It's easy to forget that movement is essential for maintaining strength and vitality. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, will I still have the motivation to stay active when everything is set up for my convenience? Once you stop moving, it becomes much harder to get back to where you were physically. In a place where everything is done for you, it's easy to become too comfortable and lose the drive to stay healthy. Alice's rapid decline. I had a neighbor named Alice, an 81-year-old woman who was full of life when she first arrived. She insisted on taking daily walks, despite her age. But after a few months, I noticed she wasn't walking as much. Then, she started using a walker, and eventually, a wheelchair. One day, she said to me, "I don't know when it happened, but I feel like I aged 10 years in just a few months." Her story is a powerful reminder of how quickly inactivity can take its toll. Staying active is one of the most important things you can do for your health, especially as you get older. In a nursing home, where everything is done for you, it's easy to stop moving, and that can lead to rapid physical decline. If you're considering this option, think about how you will stay motivated to stay active. The convenience of not having to do anything can be tempting, but it comes at a high cost. 5. Loss of privacy and dignity. The erosion of privacy. One of the hardest things to adjust to in a nursing home is the loss of privacy. Before I moved in, I had my own space. I could close my bedroom door, sit in silence when I needed to, and do things on my own terms. But in a nursing home, privacy becomes a luxury that is hard to come by. From the moment I arrived, I felt like I was constantly being watched. Staff members came in and out, room checks were scheduled, and even the common areas were shared spaces where you were rarely alone. Even the most basic acts like getting dressed or using the restroom required assistance. It wasn't that the staff weren't kind, but asking for help with something so personal made me feel vulnerable. It was difficult to accept that, after years of doing everything on my own, I now had to ask for permission to do things I once took for granted. Taking a shower, using the restroom, or even just having some time to myself often required waiting for someone to help. And then, there was the issue of sharing a room. Not everyone gets a private room, and sharing a space with someone you didn't choose can be frustrating. I was lucky to have a kind roommate, but I heard many stories of residents who didn't have such a fortunate experience. Some had roommates who were loud, unclean, or even had cognitive issues that made sleeping nearly impossible. No matter how much you try to make your room feel like home, it's never truly yours. Losing privacy is a deeply uncomfortable experience, especially after living independently for most of your life. It's not just about the physical space, it's about your dignity. When people knock on your door but don't wait for an answer before coming in, or when you are spoken to like a patient rather than a person, it starts to wear away at your sense of self-worth. It's not something that happens overnight, but over time, you begin to feel less like yourself and more like just another name on a list. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, am I prepared to lose my privacy and the ability to control my own space? Once it's gone, it's much harder to get back. It's something that can be very difficult to adjust to, especially after a lifetime of independence. Roommate conflicts. I had a friend in a nursing home named Mary, who shared a room with someone who was not very considerate. Her roommate would often be loud, disrupt her sleep, and leave things scattered around the room. Mary, who had always valued order and peace in her personal space, felt like her dignity was being stripped away. Over time, the constant noise and mess began to wear on her emotionally. It was a stark reminder of how something as simple as a shared room can impact your sense of privacy and dignity. Losing privacy in a nursing home is something that's often overlooked when people are considering this option. You might think it's just about having help with daily activities, but it's also about how you feel when you no longer have control over your personal space. If you value your privacy and autonomy, you need to think carefully about whether a nursing home is the right choice. Once you lose it, it's not easy to regain, and it can significantly affect your emotional well-being. 6. Realizing it's harder to leave than you think. The illusion of a temporary stay. When I first moved into the nursing home, I told myself it was just temporary. I thought, I'll give it a try and see how things go. If I don't like it, I can always leave and go back home. But what I didn't realize was how difficult it would be to leave once I was settled in. At first, the idea of leaving seemed simple. If I didn't like it, I would just go back home. But when I tried to bring up the idea of leaving, I found that my children had already started making changes. They had sold things I no longer needed, rented out my house, and started making plans that didn't involve me coming back. They hesitated when I mentioned returning, asking if I was sure I could manage on my own and suggesting that it might be safer for me to stay. Physically, I wasn't as strong as I used to be. After months of living in an environment where I didn't have to do much for myself, I found that I wasn't as confident in my ability to live alone anymore. My independence had slowly been stripped away, and the thought of moving back home became scarier than I expected. I met others in the nursing home who had the same experience. They, too, had thought they would just try it out temporarily, but after a while, it became harder and harder to leave. Leaving a nursing home isn't as easy as it might seem. When you first move in, it feels like a temporary solution, but the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to leave. You get accustomed to the routine, to the staff helping you with daily activities, and you lose the motivation to fight for your independence. Your health may also decline physically, making it harder to imagine living alone again. The emotional barriers are just as significant. After a certain point, you might begin to feel like the outside world is no longer a part of your reality. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, am I prepared for the possibility that leaving might not be as simple as I think? Once you settle in, whether because of physical decline, emotional barriers, or financial reasons, it becomes more difficult to imagine returning to the life you once had. For many, it's no longer a choice. A neighbor's struggle to return. There was a woman in a nursing home named Helen who initially planned to stay only for a short time. But as the months went by, she found herself more and more dependent on the staff. Her children had already made decisions on her behalf, and when she mentioned returning to her house, they questioned whether she could handle it on her own. Slowly, she began to realize that going back wasn't an option anymore. Her house had been sold, her things packed away, and she no longer felt confident in her ability to manage independently. Before deciding to move into a nursing home, it's essential to consider the long-term implications. It might seem like a temporary solution, but the longer you stay, the more difficult it becomes to leave. Whether due to physical decline, emotional attachment, or financial constraints, you may find yourself stuck in a situation where going back to your old life isn't as easy as you thought. If you are contemplating this decision, make sure to think through all the potential consequences and be prepared for the possibility that once you're in, getting out may not be as simple as you expect. Moving into a nursing home might seem like the safest option for many, but as I've shared today, there are some unexpected truths you won't find in brochures or glossy pamphlets. The loss of independence, the loneliness, and the erosion of privacy can all take a greater toll than you may think. If I had known these realities, I would have fought harder to preserve my freedom and explore other options. So, before you make this life-altering decision, I urge you to think deeply about what you're truly ready to give up. Your independence, your privacy, and your sense of purpose are more valuable than you might realize. I hope this video has helped you see the nursing home experience from a different perspective. Take your time, weigh your options, and make the decision that's truly best for you. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more valuable insights.